Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Glad to see you, glad to have you. Pull up a chair. Today we're going to carve these figures right here, right? We're going to carve these wizards with swords. Kind of looks like Odin maybe, kind of looks like a one-eyed wizard. Whatever you want them to be with a sword, we're going to carve that. We're going to get detailed on this because, well, let's see, this one the one we just carved today. So this is the one we're carving today, and we're going to get detailed. We're going to do all of these intricate things to the robe. I mean, we're going to put some detail in there, and we're going to go over how to get that done, how to get those lines there right. Like, look at the top of the hood, the way it curves. It just looks realistic. It looks flowing. It looks absolutely fantastic, and that's what we're going to work on today. This is not going to be a quick and simple whittle. This is not going to be a just relaxing whittle. It's going to be complicated. It's going to take a good bit. So bear with me, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. 2x2, 6 inches long. Let's do it. All right, we're going to carve this wizard here. Wizard, right? This guy is more advanced carving. He is not... He's not difficult to do, but he's going to require more tools to get all of the details here that you might not be accustomed to doing. So he's missing an eye, kind of like an Odin figure, right? You'll see that missing an eye. You'll notice a very František Begišević vibe and feel here if you recognize that name from Instagram. I've often loved, I should say, his stuff, but we're going to just do things a little bit different. We're going to put a sword in the hand here, like a huge sword, have the hands sitting over one another. You can do whatever you want to with the hands. You can change things up or you just follow along. We're going to do some fancy things with the robe here, with these folds and with that thing in the back there and around the hood there. We're going to put some creases into this to make it look more realistic, right? We're going to figure out some things we can do to put these lines around here that's going to make that robe look more flowing. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do those things. And to do that, we're going to use a number 9 1/4-inch file palm tool. It's number 9. We're going to use a 3mm Dockyard Tools 3mm U-gouge, and I'm going to use a large 1 3/4 rough out knife. This is a Drake knife that I've got, a Gildrake Special. It's a really great knife. I like this knife because a lot of knives have smooth handles. I don't like smooth handles too much, but this little finger grip there really indexes the knife well, and it feels solid in the hand. So I really enjoy that knife for that reason. We are going to use a 6-inch tall block of 2x2 basswood. This is a big mamma jamma. This is the biggest block, I think, that we have done a tutorial on the channel. Actually, no, I take that back. I did a snowman once back when I first started, and that was a bigger block. But this is the biggest block since then. So this will be a longer tutorial, a bit of a bear. I'm going to start off by drawing out a line on all these corners here on the top of the carving. Now from this, we're going to go about 1/3 of the way in, and a line right across there, 1/3 of the way in from that corner, and a line right across there. And then we're going to take that line and transfer that down. Okay, that 1/3 of the way in, we're just going to come straight down with it. Same thing on this side here. And then we're going to come down about 1.5 inches. Okay, so about to the 1.5 inch mark. And then from there, over here, we're going to be at the 2-inch mark. So 1.5 inches, 2-inch mark. And then we're going to draw a line between them, okay? So come down to about the 1.5 inches, and then come down to about the 2-inch mark, and that should be roughly similar there, okay? Now for the bottom corner of that elbow, that is what? 2.5 to 2 3/4 up. So let's transfer that mark. We're to come up about 2.5 to 2. Let's do 2 7/8, or 2 5/8. 2 5/8. That's where I'm at right there. So 2 5/8 is the bottom of that elbow. That's going to come over. We're going to come in about half of that width of the side of the head here. Actually, let's see here. We're going to come in about, I'm going to eyeball this and I'll give you a measurement. We're going to come in about 3/4 inch. So 3/4 inch is the inside of that arm. And we're going to come down this way here. And we're going to leave a lot of this open to interpretation, so to speak. Okay? because I like to leave a lot more room than I need. I'm going to transfer those lines over here. So that elbow will be there, or the inside of the arm will be there. That elbow will be in the same spot, like so. That roll will come down. We're going to have that sword be a 1/2 inch in on either side. So a 1/2 inch in right here. Put that line up and down. A 1/2 inch in on this side. Put that line up and down. Okay. And then all the stuff in the middle, we're going to figure out as we get to there. So we're going to leave that like so. And like so. You notice this arm is a bit higher. We're kind of making a 90 into that arm right there. And that's okay, because that arm's going to be a little bit higher than the other one. So that 90 is about the 3-inch mark coming straight up. It's about 3 inches. And that arm is again 3/4 inch in and roughly 3/4 inch in. Well, a little bit further in for this side here to make that even right there. Then coming down to something that is 1.5 inches in to the inside of this. That's 1.5 inches in to this line right here from the outside, 1.5 inches in. Probably about the same right here. And then we'll have our hands in here. But for this, we're going to stop carving right here. We're going to carve kind of that block, all of that out, and then we'll carve that separately. But we're not going to worry about that right at the bat. We're not going to worry about drawing that out. We're going to worry about carving out everything else. So those are our general measurements. That's the general guide. If you have questions about anything, ask down below and I'll be sure to answer it. But we're going to get started on this guy by taking a lot of wood out on the top here and then all the way down here as well. Now, for the inside of these legs here, we're going to transfer this line here straight down. So the same width right there. So this is going to get removed. That's going to get removed. That's going to get removed. And I'm going to come over here, transfer that line from the inside of the elbow right here there, and that's going to get removed. So we got a lot of removal to do. Let's go ahead and jump into that. Into the side and out of the top. Nice and simple. There's a lot of wood removal here, and we're just going to be taking it all out a little bit at a time. Take your time. Your hands may need to rest as you're doing this. This is a larger carving. And if you need to rest, don't be afraid to take a moment to rest, okay? We're working with the grain here. The grain is going vertical in the carving, so we're just going to go into the side, out at the top. If it slows down, just take your time to follow it slowly. You don't want to be tearing the wood too much if you can help it. And depending on how thick your blade is, it's going to be chattering a bit as you do this curve here, right? So that big curve. On a smaller piece, it's easier to do that without having a lot of chatter here. With a big knife, what you want to do is you want to use the first third of it. You don't want to use this big thick section down here where it's wider. If you do that, it's going to be hard to make that turn. Here, I'm biting in too much and I can't turn up anymore. Okay, so it's just going to start tearing. I get down here and I use the tip of that where it's thinner, and I can more easily make that turn and make that curve because the blade height here from top to bottom is thinner. So using a thinner knife, if you got a detail knife, it might work to benefit you. If you got a smaller blade like that, you can make that turn a bit easier if you're trying to smooth that out real well. But we're not going to worry about smoothing that out too much because we're just getting a general sense here right now, a general layout of everything, and we're going to adjust it later with our gouge and whatnot. So even if you just went straight in and then straight up, we can still fix it. I wouldn't suggest doing that too deep. I wouldn't go all the way into that line if I did that. I would go in maybe about, 1/4 inch, like right about there, if I was doing that. But I digress. Another thing too to look at is when you're doing that, make sure you're lining up that line. So this side here, we got all the way up to that line, right, like so. We're doing the same thing on this side now, and just carving up to it. And I'm using that thumb, that left thumb, as a pivot point here, and really digging into that wood. It's a lot of wood removed. Okay, so we got that hood mostly started. We need to take that down a little bit on this side, and I think that'll make it more even, like so. I think that's pretty good right there. We got a good start. Now, to make this easier to hold, we're going to take a lot of wood off the back here. I'm going to take off maybe 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch off the back. About that much wood is going to come off the back of here. So how much is that, so I can give you guys a good measurement? From the outside corner in, that's about 5/8 is what I'm looking at here. So I'm just going to take this all off of the back, about 5/8 of an inch in, from top to bottom. I'm starting in the middle and working my way up nice and slowly, because I don't want to start the opposite direction, so I'm likely going to be tearing wood as I go, and it's harder to get that long stretch. I'm not starting all the way. So now I'm going to work a little bit further down and then bring that in again here, like so. And now I might try to do this opposite edge, right? I turn it upside down. Now I'm going to work in the other direction. The thing to remember is when I go this direction, I'll probably be tearing. So I don't want to try to eat off large chunks. I'm going to take off little bits, because then if it starts tearing, or if the knife blade starts sinking in, that wood grain here is traveling a bit inward, like the angle of the knife here. So if I bite into the wood, it might try to take me real deep. And so if I'm not careful, I might take a whole lot more off here than I really want to. Thus, taking smaller slices when I'm going this direction here on this part of the wood is going to benefit me, because I'm not going to bite too deep. And if I do, I'm not going to go too deep too fast, because I didn't start very deep. You follow? I hope you do. So we're going to keep doing a little bit at a time, and it's taking longer in this section because we're taking off less at a time, and that's just fine. Not a problem there at all. You can see we got pretty close. We still got a bit of a hump there in the middle, so I can go in the other direction where it's easier for me and just take that hump out like so. So we got that big section of wood off in the back. We've still got a lot of saw marks everywhere that we want to get rid of. So let's try to take these saw marks off in the back that we can. And we can do most of this with our big knife. We want to be careful again about that knife not biting deep and taking off more than we need. So we're trying to barely take any wood off here, okay? Just scraping the surface. This is the direction I need to worry about. This is the direction for me on this block that's going to try to bite real good. If I go sideways with it, like so, it's going to be easier to get that off, because it's not going to be biting, because I'm going to go cross grain here. So I'm going to try to do that where I pivot the knife and do a sideways kind of cut there, like the hand in hourglass, pivoting like so. Let me turn it around. There we go. So the back of that carving is all cleaned up. Now, if you want to, there's another tool I've got here. This is a number 3, and it's a 1-inch gouge, right? It's a nice big one. Badger State Blades makes an eraser tool that's very similar. This is a KCT, and I think KCT is out of business now. But Badger State makes a larger eraser style tool that's a 1-inch, I think. And you can use this for getting off large sections of that of the surface of wood here, and just scrape basically those saw marks off. And it can be really nice to have a tool that allows you to do that. And the added benefit, I think, of using a number 3 is it textures a little bit the wood there, so it's not completely flat, kind of like we do right there with a knife, right? That's rough a little bit, and that's going to look kind of neat for any parts we leave that haven't been touched anymore. Let's say any parts that don't get touched anymore, it'll be a little bit rougher, and it's going to look neat and add some interest to the carving when we wax and oil and all that. So I like that. All right, back to the front. I don't want to remove the rest of the stuff yet, because there's some pencil marks there I want to make use of. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the underside of these arms here on either side. So I'm going to rotate this back around, and I'm going to come in here along this plane straight in. So straight on this plane here, and I'm coming right along that elbow here, and I'm going to rock that knife blade in, okay? Give you a good show of how that knife blade's in there. You can see the plane that I'm doing that on, okay? And then I'm going to carve right down to it using the left thumb to pull in. And I'm going to go deeper and rock it in. Using that left thumb to pull the knife in. You can see we got that all the way down to that point where we're looking to go, okay? Now I can carve up to there, nice and gentle, nice and slow, and start to flatten this out. The same plane as the side of that head there, we're going to flatten out down here. I can do a little paring action, doing very little at a time. Notice how it's starting to tear there at the bottom because the knife blade is starting to bite and it's starting to pull it deeper than I want to go. I need to be very careful because this is going to get deeper faster while this is more, not as shallow as that. See the big hump right there? So I need to be careful here to not take off too much. Like that's trying to take off too much. Right there. This is probably where I'm going to stop. If I take off any more in that direction, it's going to wind up pulling me too deep and go past my line. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hold this and go up from here, okay? And try to get the rest of it off this way, which is sometimes awkward to do. So take your time. Make sure you're wearing a carving glove. Make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing. Now I'm going to try to take off very little at a time to smooth it out. It's trying to bite too deep, okay? Now I started biting too deep, and you can see I got too deep right there. It's going to go past that line. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to flip this around and carve in the opposite direction to get rid of that, just like so. And I have got that pretty well where I wanted to. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So right in that plane right here, underneath that elbow, and I'm going to rock that knife blade in. Let me show you the angle there so you can see what we're doing. I'm going to carve right up to it, using that left thumb to pull that blade up and in. Okay. And when I say that I'm using the left thumb, right, I'm barely going to hold on to this knife. I'm going to show you what's happening, okay? That left thumb is doing the work here. It's pulling it in. This right here, this hand right here, is just holding the knife blade while the left thumb did the work there. It was guiding the knife. Okay. And that's in pretty good. So let's start to flatten this section here out. Like so. Looking pretty good. And go the opposite direction. Again, same thing. Be careful about how you're doing it to see if it's going to take off too much. It's just going to bite off too much. You don't want to do that. Rotate the carving as you need to. The wood grain on your particular carving is going to be different than mine. You're going to need to rotate your carving in a different spot than mine or a different time than mine, most likely. Maybe it's exactly the same. The odds of that are kind of low, but maybe it is. But you shouldn't have too much problem if you think of the wood grain and keep that in mind as you're carving. Okay. So we've made really good progress up to this point. What we're going to work on doing now is bringing this front half of the head in. We want to take off by the same thing on the back we did in the front. So we're going to bring this whole front of the carving in right to the top of those hands we put in right here. So that line right here. So right here, we're going to remove all of this wood up to the top and right here, okay? That's what we're removing right now. So I'm going to cut in straight in on the top of where our blocked in hands are going to be, right like so. I'm going to use that left thumb to pull that knife blade down and then chip that out. And then chip that out, okay? And now we're going to go up to that. Because this is the other side of the block, the grain's a little bit different direction here. And so we can wind up splitting in this direction here rather than going down in the other spots. See it's starting to split there? I think I can make that and still not lose too much. There, I split a lot of that. Terrible looking cut because it was splitting, but I didn't take off too much. I'm just barely not too much, but didn't take off too much. So now I can just barely come through here and try to smooth that out. And we didn't do too bad. Like so. Okay. We got the top half of that guy out. We're doing pretty well. We're looking pretty good. Now, to talk about this further, this arm is coming straight in here to a hand, and this one's coming down here, okay? So So we're going to block this in. We're not thinking about this as hands. It's just an untouched block is all this is going to be. We want to cut out the inside of that elbow right here. So this section here. And we want to cut out right here, this section here as well. So to do that, we're going to start upside down, and I'm going to come straight in, and then I'm going to pivot a little bit inwards, okay? I'm coming over just barely. If straight in is 12 o'clock, I'm going to pull it over to 10 o'clock, right? Just going 2 degrees over, and then I'm going to sink that tip in to that elbow right there, and I'm going to rock it in real good and deep, okay? I'm not going too high up with the back of that blade. I'm going to be mindful where the back of that blade is, because I don't want it getting all the way up here. That's going to ruin my carving. So I'm barely going in there like that. So you can see how much I got in there. It's about not much farther past where I carved there. Same thing here, but I'm going to angle it the other direction. So I'm going to come in straight in, but I'm going to angle it rather than coming over here to the 10 o'clock. I'm going to go over to the 2 o'clock here and come in this direction. That was coming downhill from the arm into that inside elbow. Okay, and I'm going to rock this tip in. It's going to be harder to rock it in from this direction because the wood grain is traveling up and down. Because we're doing that, we're going cross grain right now, and so it's going to be harder to rock this in. It's not going to be as easy as the last one was. So you get the same depth, you're going to have to work at it a little bit more, and just go ahead and do that. We don't want the back end of this blade going too far over, because it's going to kind of curve over maybe a little bit here. You want to be able to free up all of that all the way over here to the arm. So if you want to, you can. Just be mindful that you're not getting too low into where the hands are going to be, or too high up in here where the beard's going to be. You want to keep it straight over. And you can see my angle was a little bit too low. So I can come in here from the other direction and rock it in here to get us a little nice cut there. Excuse me. Okay, now I'm going to carve in real deep right through here and free that up. I want this blade to be coming in at an angle like so. As I do that, I want this tip to be following right along that edge, right as I carve straight down to it. And like I said, at an angle in there, okay? So let's go ahead and do it, and you can watch me do it so you can see this angle I get. Right like so. There's the angle. And I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to chip out that last little bit there. If there's little fuzzies left over, knock them out. Now you can see I got most of that out. That's fantastic. And there's a little bit left right there, that hump. I'm going to go ahead and carve down an end to take that out as well. Like so. So we made really good progress right there. That's fantastically deep. We don't need to get much deeper than that. If you didn't get it deep enough, go back in here. Take out a little bit extra. Stop, cut it, knock it out. Clean up the lines if you think they need to be cleaned up. Stop, cut it, knock it out. This right here looking all rough right now, that's fine. We're not worried about that right now. We're going to clean that up later. We're not worrying about cleaning everything up as we go along. We're going to clean it up when we need to. All right, now right here, that tip of that knife would go right in that elbow. I'm going to get it right on here, and I'm going to pivot it to that 2 o'clock position. If this is noon, this is going to be 2 o'clock. And I come in that way. We're going downhill from the arm into the elbow. I'm going to rock that in, again, making sure the back end of that knife isn't going too far up. It's only going up as high as the other side did. About the same distance here to there as I go up. So I do that, rock it in, and I'm going to pull that knife blade out. And this time down here, we're at a different angle. So when I push this in, I need to make sure that the knife doesn't go past that point there. So the tip of the knife is going to go right in here into the elbow, and I'm going to push this in, and I'm going to rock it in, and I'm going to be very mindful of the fact, again, that that blade isn't going to go past that edge right there, okay? So I'm going to rock this in right there, nice and deep. Now, I'm turning it around, and I'm going to come in at that corner. Same angle, try to deepen that line right there, okay? And now I'm going to come in right here on the outside edge of that hand. That's a block that we're just blocking in, and deepen that knife in. I'm coming straight in on that one. I'm come straight in on this one right here too, and just rock that in, okay? Because we're not worried about that block right now. That block is for our hands. We're going to worry about that later when we go to detail work. Right now, we're going to try to take all of this stuff out at that same kind of inward angle coming down here from where the beard's going to be setting. So what I'm going to do that is I might do a paring cut to get in there. You can get in here however you want to. You can come in from the side and come in like so. Let's try that. Because the thing to remember with this is When you're carving, there's a dozen ways of doing any one thing. You don't have to do this the way that I do this. I can carve this in this direction. I can carve this out from this direction. The goal here is to make a slope from where the beard's going to be up here down to the arms and into that elbow, okay? How I go about that or how you go about it is completely up to you. So we can carve in from the side like so, and that works. We can also carve this section here down from the top, and that works. That's not nearly deep enough, so I need to keep doing it more to get the depth that I want. Free that up. And I need to come in from a different angle to get that corner right here, okay? But I did that, and I need to carve that little bit out right there to pop that out the rest of the way. And I can come back around, go from different angles, looking for anything I can to get the depth I want in that spot. And I did pretty well. I need to bring, like see this side here is lower than that side. I need to bring that back up. So let's come in from the side like so and do that. And that's pretty even, that's pretty close. We did pretty well. Now I can take off these saw marks right here. We don't need those now. We're at that point where we don't need them. All the way around. Fantastic. Like so. Okay. Let me think here. What else are we going to do? What are we going to do next? Clean that up. See, I just took that hard corner off that front. You can do the same thing on the back. See how there's a big ridge right here? See that ridge? I'm just going to carve along that ridge and knock it off. Make it a bit smoother through there. Right? Now, let's start freeing up where that sword is going to be here in the front and the bottoms of these robes. This robe is getting thicker as it comes down, okay? It's thinner here at the elbow because it's hanging down here. So what you can do is you can just block it in here, from here to here, remove some wood, and that makes it really easy to come in here and carve the details around that after the fact, okay? So let's think about it in that terms, okay? We want that robe is going to be hanging lower on this side than it is on this side because this one's sitting higher, okay? So this side's sitting lower. So we need to be down here because that robe's going to come down like so on this side here, sitting lower than that side. So I can take, and what we're going to do here is, let's see, that sword is going to come up. I'm going to draw a little bit on our hand, okay? So I'm going to come down about 1/4 of an inch. Start angling up like this, and then over like this, okay? And that hand is going to come down like this, in that kind of shape, okay? Kind of up like so, and down. And you can look at this guy. You can look at the overlay that we've got going on to see kind of what the idea is here that we're going for, all right? The other hand, oh, I'm knocking chips around. The other hand is going to be sitting right below it, like so, wrapped around the haft of our sword, like so. So I can take this line here all the way down from up there, and this one all the way down from there. So you can pause the video there to try to transfer those marks. Those are ugly, hideous marks. If you don't understand what's happening, watch me carve it first before you carve it, and then come back to this point, and you can look at the timestamp below and then figure out from there, okay? Now to carve this, I want to carve straight in on this sword. So I'm going to come straight in on this plane, the plane where that point is in the front, and I'll come straight down with it. So I'm going to push that knife blade in, and I'm just going to come right down. We're carving between the grain right now, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Notice I am holding the carving on the carving mat. Why am I doing that? In this kind of a thing where I'm pushing deep and pulling like that, it's really easy to lose your grip. It's really easy to lose control, and I don't want to hurt myself. And to keep myself from injuring myself, I am holding it down here, because then if I lose control of the knife, if I lose my grip, if all of a sudden the knife starts sliding through that wood really fast, what happens is I put a little bitty nick in my carving mat and I don't hurt myself. That's what happens, and that's just quite all right. So I'm going back in here now, a second pass to get some depth on there, and I got a good bit of depth. I'm pretty happy with that depth, all right? Now I'm going to put a stop cut in right here, straight in, right with a tip right along the edge of that sword, and I'm going to rock this in. I want to be deeper along the edge of the sword and shallower out here on the edge because we're going to move a flat plane here, so it's going to be kind of like a triangle shape. We're going to be removing wood in basically that shape right there, okay? So now that I've got that in place, I'm going to put the tip about midway and carve right up there, like so. I'm going to do the same thing in the opposite direction. I need a paring cut to do that, like so. And we did pretty good at freeing up that side of the sword. Now let's go to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing, rocking in underneath where our robe is going to go, like so. And then midway up, I'm going to carve down to it a little bit deeper. And now carving the other direction. And depending on how you're holding your knife, on which dominant hand you use, is how you're going to rotate the carving. If you're left-handed, you're going to be doing things a lot different than I am. You're going to be rotating differently. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There are 100 ways to do any one carving. I mean, like the CCA, the Caricature Carvers of America, they released a book on carving eyes where every member of the Caricature Carvers of America put his way of carving eyes, and each one of them are different. There's like 20 guys in the group, and they all have a different way of carving eyes. There's 20 different ways to carve an eye. That is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic, but it really illustrates the point that you don't have to carve this the way that I do. I'm showing you how I do it so you can see the shape I'm getting and see how to do this the first time, but adapting it to your style should be a priority for you, especially as you get better and better at this. All right, so I put a little bit of depth right there. I cut in about, what is that? Not much at all. Maybe a 1/4 of an inch, probably an eighth, maybe 3/16. And then I carve that flat up to that point, okay? Now I'm gonna take the saw marks off this blade, off of this sword that we've got here, up to that point, like so. And same the other side. Ooh, it's cutting a little deep right there. Turning it around, carving the opposite direction. There we go. Now I want to get rid of this hump right here underneath that robe. So I'm going to continue that line for that robe there. Same for here. Okay, I'm going to flatten that out to match this and this. Okay, so come in right there on the side and then carve right up to it. Like so. Carve the opposite direction down. I can remove a lot of that excess. Like so. That's pretty good progress. We're making good progress. We're doing really well. Same thing on this side right there. And then a little bit of paring action on the bottom here. Like that. And we are making real good progress on getting this guy done. Now we're going to wait on the details of our hands, right? We're going to save that for a bit. Let's concentrate on getting our head set in, on getting that done properly, because we've got too much wood going on up here. We can eliminate a lot of that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start here in the back, and I want to come in about that far. Let me see what that measures out to. I want to come in about 1/2 of an inch. To do that, I want to bring the backs in on the side, the wings of the head, okay, the left and the right, and then bring the back in as well. So I'm going to start here on this flat plane right here, okay? It's a block originally, right? This flat plane in the back of the arm. I'm going to start flattening that plane, and I carve from the shoulder up, trying to get deeper off the top. As I do that, up to that center line, like so. You follow? So I took it off that corner here, from that line to that line. And the same thing this side on this flat plane right here. I'm going to carve up and try to do the same thing, bringing this flat plane into those 2 points. Take your time. Like so. I went a little bit too far, and that's okay. We can adjust as needed. Now I'm going to do the same thing in the back here. I carve now from those shoulders and carve up till I match our 1/2 inch. Almost there. And there we go. Oh, not quite, not quite. There we go. So we've brought that in pretty well. Back of the heads, rounding that in. Now we're going to start to round over the top of the head. The easiest way to do this is with paring cuts, because ingrain is notoriously hard. And you've probably heard me preach that if you watch these videos of me very often, okay? So I'm going to pull all this ingrain here off. I'm going to try not to get too far in. I'm going to take, not a 45, just a little bit off of the corners all the way around. And I carve towards the back here as I take off these saw marks. And this is when you find out how sharp your knife is. I say that a lot too, I know. Oh, there we go. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Looking all right. Just fine. Now, I want to point this out too. If you haven't taken a break yet and you need to, take a break. I carve every single day for 2 to 3 hours every single day. So a session like this, where I'm carving a lot and removing a lot of wood, is kind of normal for me. It's not going to be for everyone. If you have to take a break in the middle of this video, take a break. Pause, relax your hand. It might be getting tired, and take care of yourself. When you get too tired and your hands get too exhausted, that's when accidents are going to happen, and I don't want you hurting yourself. So again, I'm going to take a moment here and say this. Rest your hands if you need to. Make sure you're wearing a carving glove. Go get a drink of water. Take a walk for a moment. Go pet your dog. Go talk to your wife, talk to your kids, talk to your husband, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to whoever you need to, and then come back to this project. I'll wait. You can pause me and I'll be right here. Okay, you're back? Welcome back. I'm so glad you came back. Super excited. Let's go ahead and finish this guy up, because we're right at the same spot we were when you left. Get a little teeth myself, and that's the end of our intermission. Okay, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? So we want this head right here, the top of the hood, to be kind of brought down a little bit, okay? So I'm going to come down about 1/4 inch. And I want to take all of this off right here along the front to about that 1/4 inch mark, okay? Be real careful about my thumb, watching my thumb to bring, and you can carve this from the other direction if you want to. You can carve this direction right here, okay? So that front hood is going to come down like so. Just like that. The same thing here. Bring that around the outer edge, same way. We can do that all the way around. We might as well, because we're going to need that much of an angle all the way around. This hood's going to be sitting kind of low on his head. Now here's where I'm going to round this off in the front too, okay? So these hard straight lines there, I'm going to take those off, because I want to be able to draw with a pencil on this. And so the fewer hard lines we have, the easier it's going to be for me to do that. All right. Now I'm going to draw about that 1/4 inch down where we brought that angle right here, okay? So right where that angle starts to become flat again, that's where I'm going to be at. And I'm going to draw down and around like so, down and around like so. And this is going to be the opening of this hood for our hooded wizard, Odin, druid, whatever it is you want to call him, okay? And that line is coming right down here to the start of the shoulders right there, and that's going to open up for the beard underneath. And we can do a long beard, we can do a short beard, we can do a long beard that's hidden behind the clothes here, or we can end it right there. I think we're going to end this one right like so, where it doesn't go quite down all the way, but we can do whatever we want to. In this other gentleman's version here, I've got the beard going down behind the hands, and that works out pretty well. That works out just fine. Okay, so to do this and carve this, we don't need to go crazy deep. We do not need to go crazy deep. Please hear me on that, okay? We're not going to go crazy deep. What we're going to do is we're going to start easily from the center line, and we're going to carve this coming straight in and then around and down, okay? So watch me do it first, and then you can try to replicate afterwards. Carving straight in and around and down, and I'm not going crazy deep. The depth I have on that is not much, okay? Just barely of the blade. I'm going to do the same thing the other direction. For me, it's going to be easier to come from this direction. If you prefer to come from the bottom up the top, you can do that. The issue I have when I do that is I wind up coming not straight in like this. I wind up coming in at an angle when I do that, and I don't want to do that. I want to come straight in. So again, I'm going to come up here from the top, and I am going to slowly bring that blade around. Just let me pivot the carving as I do this. If that's how you need to do it, that's how you need to do it. I get that point right here, I can put the carving and bring it straight down like so. And again, not much of the blade is in there, okay? Now from here, I need to take all this out. Not much. I'm going to take it out from here up to about there, and the same thing on this side here, okay? I'm not going to take out that center section. So watch how I do this first. I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to carve up to that point there. The tip of the blade is going to follow along that path where I cut to just chip this out, okay? And I'll rotate up into that. Should just chip out like so. If you need to release that stuff, come back over. Run that line back over if you need to, if that helps. This thickness here of that doesn't need to be there. So if you got to adjust, you can adjust, and it's just fine to get that out of there, okay? So we've got a big hump here in the center. You can see how we're doing that, just that edge out. We're doing the same thing over here. For this side, it's going to be easy for me to do a paring cut. I love this paring cut. That thumb is going to be down here out of the way. And I'm just going to pull this knife blade up into it, like so. I can try to pull it out. If it doesn't want to pull out, come back in, and you retrace that line until it drops out, right? And now we've got this hood started right there. Now I'm just going to take out a little bit here, not real deep. You'll notice. Get a little bit out of there. Just about a 1/4 inch down, and then carving up to it and release it, okay? This edge inside of there is going to look terrible at first. That's okay. We're going to clean it up as we go, all right? If you want to spend a little time here to clean it up, you can, but you don't have to. What we're going to do now is we're going to put in our nose, and our nose is going to come down from the top, I'd say maybe about 1.25 inches, round about there. And I'm going to put a line right here. How wide do you want that nose? I've got some dwarves here, right, with a really wide nose. Oh my God, that's so wide. And I got this guy here, and it's a really wide nose. He looks fantastic. But I got this guy back here, and he's got a really thin nose. However you want to do the nose, you do the nose. If you do it too big, you might not have room for eyes. And that's okay if you don't want to have room for eyes. We're going to try to do a very simple set of eyes, though, that are going to match the style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stop cut in right here, coming straight in. I'm rocking the blade in, and I'm going to carve right up to it. And take out about that much. See how much got out there? Right about that. Take out, clean that up a little bit. Now, we're going to look at, let's carve this down a little bit right here. I do a paring cut on this side. I'm taking down a little bit of the depth right there, a little bit of the height, okay? Like that. And now we're going to put in some eyes. So we're going to draw kind of a weird shaped T here, okay? I'm going to come in a line like this. This line here is creating the brow, and this line is creating the side of the nose. And the same thing, and try to mirror this line on this side as well. The line here for the brow, if you have it angled slightly higher on the outside, you're going to create a more severe look. If it does the opposite direction and it comes down, He looks contemplative. He looks sad. He looks morose. It is a different set of emotions depending on how that bridge or how that brow line is angled. It really matters. So think about how you're angling that as to what effect you want to create, and do that according to that, or do your carving according to that, okay? Now I've got this nose wider than I want it. Why did I do that? It makes it easier for these next steps if I need to remove more. So I'm coming straight in, I'm gonna rock that blade in so that blade is right in line with where I've got carved. So you can see that blade is not quite touching right there, almost touching. You can just see my glove behind it, underneath it. The same thing for this other side here. Put that tip into that corner and push that knife blade in till I'm just almost there, but not quite touching on the outside there. I don't, oh, I did touch a little bit right there. You can see it just in the right light. There you can see it, right? And that's okay, I can fix that. Now in here, I want to make sure that the back of the blade here does not touch the hood. So I'm gonna try to come in and rock in and set this line in here, but I'm trying to make sure that blade doesn't touch that hood as I do this. I do it from one side, I come in here, I do it from the other side, okay? Make sure you have a good hold of your carving. Whatever you need to do to get a good grip on it, do that, rock the knife in. Don't push too hard if it feels like you're gonna lose grip on your carving. You don't want to carve into yourself and hurt yourself. Now we need to carve this stuff out. So I'm gonna carve up and in and over like this, okay? Up to there, and then over. I should be able to chip most of that out right there. That's not bad. Still a little rough, and that's okay. We're gonna make it look better as we go. So same thing over here. We got that one line carved in already. I'm gonna carve in nice and deep in that point there, but I'm making sure the back of that blade doesn't touch the hood. I'm gonna turn it around and come in from the other direction and repeat that. Like so. And now for this one, I'm going to come the other direction because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to come up and in like so. And if I need to release off the back side, I can do that. And a lot of that chipped out right there. Like so. See me taking multiple cuts to get this out? There's nothing wrong with that. Take your time. Get out what you need to get out. Remember, we got a super secret trick to heal our carvings when we're done. We wash them. That is a lot for fixing a carving. That's a whole lot. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to continue that brow line over the nose. So I'm going to come in here at a 45-degree angle and carve up to it. I'm going to let you see it here a second, real close. You can see what I did, okay? See that thing I did right there on that side? I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to come in right along that brow line and come up to it and snip it out. Clean that up a little bit too on there. If you've got one side a little higher than the other, that provides emotion too. That's a mistake that I made. I wanted to make them even, but now that I got them separate, one's a little bit higher than the other, it's going to look like he's raising his eye a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. That's going to be a neat look. I'm going to like that. You're going to like that. It's going to look really good when we get done, okay? I'm going to continue to take out a little bit around that brow here, around that nose. Bring that down, bring this up. That nose, rounding it in. Okay. Now, our nose is really square looking, absolutely terrible. Clean up those lines around it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take off these hard lines on the outside. Hard lines. I'm going to take off that corner on each side. And now I'm going to take out a little notch right here, about a quarter of the way up on each side. Okay. Like so, little notch. And that nose could be done right there. But let's do better. Let's do better. From that notch, I'm going to carve straight up and chip out. Carve straight up and chip out. I'm going to roll in. I'm going to start here at that spot and then roll it up and in. Same thing we did on the side right here. I'm going to kind of create a bit more movement to that nose. I have a hard time getting the grip right there. Now, we've got some good progress there. That brow is out way too far. So I want to fix that. How am I going to fix that? I want to provide a bit of a severe look. So I'm going to come in at an angle here. Come in at an angle here. Carve over and down to it. And then shift the top of that out. Over and down to that. Shift the top of that out. Chip up to it if I need to. However you do it. This is one of those carvings that I'm trying to do on the fly, kind of. I just finished this guy. I got an opportunity to carve today. I thought, man, I'm going to do a video on this guy. He's gotten a good response. People probably would like to see how to do him. So I haven't planned this carving. I'm going to think about how to do what I did on lunch break. And that's not always an easy thing to do hours later. How do I redo that? How do I predict what I need to get done? You follow? So I apologize if this part here seems less well structured. I'm kind of trying to figure it out right now. A lot of chips to bring that forehead back up and in. You see what I'm doing there? Put that forehead back up and in and try to form a couple of brows here. Let me get my brush. So that's what I'm going for. That's what I try to do. And it didn't turn out too bad for that little section there, I think. All right. So take off those pencil marks on that nose. Round that nose a bit. Right? If you notice that nose is oblong now because part of it chipped off. There's nothing wrong with that. It looks weathered and beat up, and I kind of like that look. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We can even put in right here a little kink into it. Okay? Make him look like an ugly fella. Oh, he's gonna look ugly. Ugly old men are easy. Even doing caricatures, ugly old men are easy. It's easy to make an ugly old man because when you mess something up, it just becomes a part of the piece. It becomes character. It becomes something wonderful and easy to see and envision and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely an easy thing to do. All right, so we're going to do an eye on one side, and we're going to do just a deep pit on the other side for our guy here, like he's missing an eye, like it's been gouged out, right? And on this guy here, we did it on this side here. We can do it on either side you want to. If you do it on the right eye being out, his right eye, our left, so like from this side, it's his right eye, right? If you do that side, it's kind of like Odin, if you want to, or you can just do it however you want to. You can put two eyes in. I'm going to show you how to do an eye. So you can put two regular eyes, or you can put a big gaping hole there that makes him look like however you want to. So to do that hole, I'm going to sink in right here along the edge of that nose, real deep right there, okay? And then along that brow, again, I'm going to come in real deep right there, along the outside edge of that hood, real deep. And now I'm going to carve up and in, right like so. And I'm going to spend some time chipping that out, like that. Look at the shadow that created. Now, underneath that, I'm going to put a scar, a little V cut coming down like that from that eye, okay? It's a big hole in his head right there. Absolutely fantastic. That's going to be a lot of personality right there. Now, for this eye, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore that line right there. We're going to act like that's not there. We're going to put a big triangle right here, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to carve 45-degree angle down and up to it, just barely putting in a line, and then right like so. That's what you want to try to avoid when you're doing it. What I just did there, okay? You don't want to have anything extra chip out if you can help it. Now, if you got a little V-tool, it'd be really easy to do this with a V-tool. So let's do that, because this is one of the carvings where we're using more stuff. So I'm going to use a little V-tool here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 lines in, just right inside there, like this and that, okay? So I use this little V-tool. If you got a U-gouge, a little small one, you could use that. You can also do this with your knife if you want to. I grabbed a V because that's easier for me, all right? And take a look at that eye. You see the shadow it creates now? We just did 2 V cuts, one that way and one that way, right up into the brow, and it created that little, just kind of, man, he looks sinister, doesn't he? He looks flippin' sinister. I love this. This is fantastic. It's working out really great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. So let's look at, you know what, maybe we're going to do this beard. Yeah, I think I want it to go all the way down. I think I want it to go all the way down, right down behind all of that. So we're going to continue that. I'm going to bring this line straight down, okay? By doing just like so. And do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to bring that line straight down to the arms, okay? And now I'm going to carve out from this side. This side's going to be lower. The beard's going to be outside. I'm going to take out the inside of that robe right here, all the way down there, and see if I can chip that out. If you can't, you might need to get up underneath there again. Take out a little bit at a time. Recut your lines if the piece isn't coming out as best you can. Take your time, recut it over and over again until you get what you want to pop out to pop out. Now we're using other tools here, so if you want to, it's not coming out, put that gouge back in there. Use this number 9 to like dig that thing out if I want to. Okay. By doing these bigger carvings, you're learning that I do a lot of things by feel. And I try something new. And what will happen with this tool? Will it work with that tool? And I do that because I'm still learning how to carve. Still learning how I like to carve. I'm learning all kinds of things about carving every single day, and I'm getting better at it every single day because I'm carving more every single day. So when I tell you what I'm doing, it's just that. It's what I'm doing. What you do is different. If that's what you want, you do it however you want to. I'm just trying to share my journey. Alrighty. That's looking pretty good. I'm liking that. I don't like how terrible that looks. I think that's too deep. So how am I going to fix that? Because it looks flipping nasty and gnarly. 45, those arms. All right. So for the rest of this carving, what I'm doing right now is I'm making those elbows match in the back right there. I jump around in carvings. If I'm not sure about something, I'm going to come back to it later. That's what I'm doing. So I'm jumping around. So let's work on this. Back of the arms. The arms are going to come up to about yay high. So we're going to separate those out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in straight on the outside plane here. I'm going to draw down like so. And then I'm going to come up here and start at the top. And I'm going to carve down like that. And gently take it out. Be careful not to let that knife bite too much as you come down. And now we separated out the back of that arm. Now we're going to do the same thing over here for this side. We're going to come straight in and put that line in. And now I'm going to do a paring cut over here. And bring that down like so. I chipped that out because it's starting to bite too deep. So I wanted to come from the other direction here and carve up into that. Like so. Okay. I handled the dog out to go to the bathroom, so you saw things stop for a minute. Okay. So we're working on the back here for a minute. Take off that corner of the back of that arm. We want to put a nice belt in because the belt's not going to be seen on the front because the arms are in the way. So what we're going to do is right above or right where that arm goes across right there. That's going to be the top of our belt. There it comes right across like so. And then maybe a quarter of an inch down or so, we're going to put another line right there adjacent to it. That'll be the bottom of our belt. So what we're going to do is we're going to carve just in there, not just straight in, so it's like the 10 o'clock position there, and make this belt higher and that lower. On the inside of the elbows, I'm going to carve in here, and push in, and carve down to it to chip that out, like so. And then carve that around here for that belt. You notice I'm not going very high up on the back here as I come around, because we can correct the slope of the back later after we get the depth of this belt in how we want it. Because we want to create shape to the back that is going to look athletic, okay? As I do this on the underside here, I'm going to shift down. So up here I was angling out like this. Down here I'm angling the opposite direction because I want it to come down from the belt to the lower part of the robe. Now underneath this arm, I'm going to do a relief cut right there. Same thing on this side. A relief cut right there underneath the arm. Okay, and then I carve up and in, chip that out. Making good progress. Okay, that's looking really fantastic. Look how much depth we got there. But our robe looks terrible, and our robe looks terrible up here and down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to smooth this out. The bottom of our robe is going to stay pretty thick. The top of our robe here, this is the top of the back, that's going to stay where it's at, but we're going to bring that back in. When you look at an athletic man or woman, their back is out further to the top and it comes down into the waist, okay? And a robe should flow out from the waist and expand a bit as it comes down. To make this robe be more interesting, we do right now, I'm going to take this number 9 gouge, and right here about a quarter of an inch to half an inch up, I'm going to put a deep trench here around the back side. This could be the beginnings of our folds that we're going to have on this carving, okay? And if you want to use a bigger gouge, you don't have to use a small one. Do I have a bigger one right there? What's that? That's number 9. Use this bigger one here. If you got a bigger one, you can do a bigger depth there if you would like to. Whatever you want to do. When it comes to the wrinkles, we can do those however we want, how deep we want, how shallow we want. They can be whatever we want them to be, okay? So from that, we're going to carve now down to that curve, right? And then up to it along here. Yes, we smooth it out kind of. Now I'm going to take that gouge, come back through the middle there, and smooth out that roughness we put in there. So now we got that crease kind of thing happening there, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Now from there, we're going to carve up to that belt. Take a lot of that depth out here. And you're going to see that start to develop into a fold in the bottom of the robe. See what I'm talking about? Now that started to look more like that thing's folded out like that, right? Looks fantastic. Something else we could do right here, we could take a little sideways kind of V cut, right? Like another fold just coming down here and bring it right out that edge, like so. So it kind of folds over more. Okay, so you got a little fold there. Liking the look of that. What you can also do too is you can take that number 9 you got and just put a little notches coming out of the bottom, and that just adds a little texture to the bottom of the carving as you come down out of there. See how this is like really flat right there too? I don't want it to be flat. I'm gonna rough that up. Make it where it's not flat. All under there as we go around there. Okay. Alrighty. So we got pretty good on the underside of the robe in the back here. Let's work on bringing the back of this carving here, the back of the shoulders and whatnot, down into that belt. So from this section down, that's where I'm smoothing it out, okay? From up here down to the belt, down to the belt, and then right here, same way down to the belt, okay? Now that belt is way too thick. Look how big and bulky that is. So I'm gonna 45 that, and we got like 3 or 4 options that I can think of offhand on things we can do with this belt. And really the options are endless. You can do whatever this belt you want to do, but I'm going to show you a couple of options that we can do. Okay. We're taking a lot of the depth off this belt. This belt doesn't need all that depth. We needed that depth to create a line where the waist was, so we could see the waist of our guy, right? Like that waist is really developed now. You can see the back is out farther like that, and the hips come up to that. It's looking pretty good, right? We're creating that look that we're looking for. Carving that section a little bit better here. I want there to be more separation there. Okay, so you got a couple options, okay? You can come through here and just put a deep gouge across there, and that's one look for a belt. And you could do something like that right there, okay? Just take a gouge straight across that, and that's one look for a belt. You can also go back in there, and you can draw little lines and do V-cuts across the back edge, and that's another look for a belt like I did in this little dwarf right there. This guy here, I did that long straight stretch. So that's the easiest one to do, is to take another gouge and like start in the middle and then carve all the way over, and then start on this side here and then carve all the way over from the middle as well. Excuse me. A little bit more complicated to do, so that's what we're going to show you, is to draw these lines here like a candy cane and then just keep them about the same distance apart all the way around like so, and that'll create some texture to this belt. Okay, so we got our lines done, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do V-cuts all along this. So I'm going to start here on the top edge and just do V-cuts there, V-cuts here on the middle, and then I do the same thing on these other lines. And I'll flip it around and do the second halves of them, like so. V-cuts, V-cuts, V-cuts. Starting on the other side here, V-cuts, 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 and then V-cuts. Da, da, da. Okay, so yeah, that created that little bit of a pattern there, right? And take your time to clean up whatever you think doesn't quite look right. I want to adjust that thickness there so it looks more uniform. If you want to roll those edges over a bit more, roll them over. Don't have it be too blocky if you don't want to be too blocky. If you look at, like that center part there is too high up, round that off, maybe, like so, and like so. And that's pretty good. I like that. That's a really good looking belt. Now, what else can we do to add detail to this belt? I can take this number 9 gouge, okay, and I can put a little channel like so, a little channel like so. And then I'm going to take, where's that V tool? Let's do this V tool right next to it and just do it about half the height, okay? And now we're going to chip those things out. And what this looks like here, it provides the illusion that this cloth is bunched up here, okay? It's being pulled in towards that little section there. We can, the V-cut one, you can elongate a little bit here by taking those corners off. Same thing for the U-gouge if you want to, right? And it really provides that look that like the cloth is being pulled in tight through there. I really love how that does that. So that does really well, okay? We'll take these hard edges off right there real fast because we can. All right, now we make pretty good progress. Let's go ahead and take a look at the front of this carving here and think about what we're going to do with our hands. What we're going to do with our hands. We know that this hand here is coming out and over. It's going to come down a little bit like so. So I want to bring this hand here is on top. This hand here underneath there is going to be on bottom. And then we're going to carve this section out and free that section out right there. To do that, we might need a skew. And I have a little skew. And I have some other skews here as well. I'm going to show you how you can make use of these skews here. And that's the goal with these more advanced videos, to show you like all the tools you can use. I'm going to have a lot of tools out. You don't need all of these tools. Like I said, you don't need that big number 9, but I got it out to show you what you can do with it. That's what we're doing here. We're trying out different tools to see what all we can do. So we want this hand to come over the top of this. I'm going to take this hard edge off here. We don't need that. That's going to be the knuckles are right there, okay? Same for there. That's be the top of the hand here, okay? So right here, I'm going to come straight in, all right? And I'm going to bring the back of that cut down to the bottom of that hand, right like so. I can probably bring that in too. I don't need all that here anymore. Like so. So there's one little chip out. Now for this hand here, I can put a stop cut in like so. A stop cut in here along the bottom of the hand, carve up to that. And that's going to start to farm that hand as well. Here's the bottom of that hand. We can bring that cut all the way along over here. Okay. Do you see that hand forming now? You see what we're talking about, we're looking at? So right here, carve over to that. This is the edge of that robe. So we're going to carve that robe. Carve into it, okay? Now, we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to bring that hand down here to that robe and then put it in a line for that robe and carve into that robe. Okay. There we go. So we got the hand starting to be formed in. I'm going to take the rest of this out right there. So I got those fingers formed out. I'm going to take those saw marks off the front of that, saw marks off here, set the rest of that robe in right up to that point, like so. And then set the robe in on the top of the hand here too, okay? Coming around to the top of the hand and carving down to that robe. That hard corner off the inside here. And this is where you can clean up the inside line of that robe if you want to. If that looks terrible right there, you want to clean it up right now, go for it. Okay, and we need to reset in our elbows here because we got that kind of flat. We don't need that to be flat. We're gonna need to fix that. We can fix that here in a little bit. Okay. So take that flat plane off here. More saw marks off right here. Alrighty. That hand can come flat up to there, and we're gonna set that in for the bottom of that hand, right like this. Carve right up to it. And follow that line right over here around, or right up to it. Okay. Now we want to free up a small section here, okay? From the side of this to the inside of that robe. And if you made that robe longer, you wouldn't have to do this. I like doing it because it looks technically complicated, okay? Freeing that little section up in there, I think, adds a little something to the depth of this. And I want this to be a more complicated carving. I want you to see what I'm doing. I want you to be able to try to do and attempt things that might not work out, you know, that might not work out very well. We're going to try that. I'm going to use this skew, and I'm going to first sink this in on that side of the robe. I'm going to sink it in on this side of the sword, okay? And then I'm going to come in from the top. Ooh, it's a little too wide. Okay, I got another skew right here. And I come in a little right here on top, and I cut right down into there, okay? Sinking that in, and then I carve right up the back side, like so, and free that up. And look at that. So you got that out of there? I thought at first that I would never use a skew, and I had them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the kind of stuff I can do with those. Look at that thin little strip I was able to get out of there. Isn't that fantastic? I wouldn't be able to do that without a skew. So that right there is a lesson in why you might want a skew. If you don't want to use a skew on this, then don't. Don't use one. Do it differently. Do it to where the robe goes all the way up to the sword if you want to. And then you don't have to do this little section here at all. Okay? This side's a little bit wider, so I can try to use the wider skew. Okay, now let's work on this sword a little bit. We got that flat plane. Just going to straighten it out a bit. Like so. Now on the bottom of the sword, we're going to 45 it on either side to bring it to a point. Like so. And then we're going to 45 it again along the front to put a little point on the sword like that. Okay? Now, up this center section here, we're going to use our gouge, and we're going to put a little chamfer in there. Okay? Try to get centered up, and then get not as deep as you can go, but fairly deep. You can see I got that little section there. It's a big, thick sword. It's like an anime-style thick sword, right? We're not going for hyper-realistic. We're going for something cartoonish a little bit. You can, if you want to, you can try to undercut that. I'm not going to worry about that because that's a lot of work. Okay. What else can I do here? I want to get a larger V-tool. And I'm going to try to use that to fix this section here. Reseat in that elbow and clean that up. And that looks a whole lot better. That looks a whole lot better. All right. We're doing pretty good there. Good progress. Now, let's take off all these saw marks in here on these hands as we work to clean up how these hands are going to look. Because we want fingers to be, when you're doing fingers, you want to have 5 fingers. Our thumb is going to be hidden back here behind the hand a little bit, so you're not going to be able to see it. So we want to have 4 fingers across here To do that, I'm going to draw one line dead middle, okay? And then the middle of that, and the middle of that. And those 3 lines gives us 4 fingers right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the very middle, and then split it in the middle again, and split it in the middle again right there. And that gets you 4 fingers, okay? Now this hand here is coming across like this. So we do the same thing here with middle, 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 you see? And so this is the back of the hand right through here. So right through here is the back of the hand. So that means this section here is where the wrist is going to come down to that wrist a little bit. Get smaller as it goes towards that wrist, okay? Like so. Now we need to separate those out. If you've got a V-tool, those V-tools make this really easy. That's a gouge. Where's the small V-tool? It's a snake. It would have bit me. It's sitting right there. There it is. Okay, so this is that number 12 V-tool, a little small one. All right, I'm going to use this and I'm going to carve those lines to set them in. V-tools are really great at this because they're easy to, to pilot and steer. So you can get really straight lines rather easily. Right through there. I got that kind of rough. You don't have to do that with a V-tool. You can do that with a knife, okay? You draw the line, and then you carve a little bit out one side, and then you carve a little bit out the other side, okay? And then you've done it with a knife. And it might be better to do it with a knife. You can do it from this direction here. And then again. Now, this finger on the end here, that's this hand here, that's the pinky on the outside edge. So that pinky, we want to have that be shorter. So let's take that one down, like so. That index finger, we want to have it a little bit shorter. So let's take that one down, like that, okay? We want to put a little bit of a crease right there in that hand. See that little crease we added right there? Okay. I'm going to round that over. Now we're going to use that 2mm or the 3mm gouge that I talked about in the beginning. We're obviously using far more tools than I initially talked about. Right on that edge here, right in those lines we draw, I'm going to come straight up from there and bring these lines up with that gouge. Why? Because there are channels here along your hands, okay? They're divots right there, and they're very easily visible on our hands, but they're not the separation between the fingers. They're just like where the bones are, where the skin sets between the bones on your hands, okay? So we can do that like that, and we get those lines in. And we do the same thing down here, bring those lines like so, and that really sets off that hand, and they go down there pretty good. So that's absolutely fantastic, and that's really going to make those hands pop. And people are going to say, man, those hands look so good. What did you do? That little bit of work with that gouge really sets those apart, really sets those out there. Okay, let's work on this beard here a little bit, huh? So for the beard and the cheeks, what we're going to do for the cheeks is we're going to be very angular. We're going to come straight down from the corner of that nose and then come straight up about halfway over. Same thing over here. Straight down, straight up, and we're going to put V-cuts in and put the cheekbones higher than the beard. So to do that, I'm going to come at a 45-degree angle like so, and then carve right up to it. And the same thing on this side here. Come down, and then I'm going to carve in a different direction and carve right up to it. Same thing over here, 45, and up to it, and then a 45, and carving right up to it. Take that real hard corner off on either side, and now we've got cheekbones in there. Look at how evil and severe he looks. He looks like he's got something going on that we don't want to know about. He looks fantastic. I love it. Okay, so now we can look at how we want to do a mustache. Do we want to do a simple mustache? Do we want to do a more complicated one? On this guy, he's got a handlebar kind of mustache and a little mouth underneath it. The style that František Begashevich does on Instagram, let's do that, right? Where he kind of comes up like here, like a half circle, or half, like an upside down U kind of thing right there. And so we're going to do the same way we done the hood. We're going to start in the middle, okay? And we're going to carve down and around. We'll go the other direction here, start in the middle, and we carve down and around, right? Then we're going to carve up and in on one side to free that, up and in on the other side, okay? You notice we left that little bit in the middle here, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to barely take anything out there in the middle, and now I'm going to carve down and up to it like a V right there, okay? I'm going to elongate that over, and that gives us a bottom lip like that right there, huh? And now the inside edge of that right here, we can carve that in, smooth the inside edge of that. Like that. He's really looking neat. He's looking fantastic. Okay, so texturing the beard, we can do several things. Use your big number 9, or the number 9 you got, and you can put some texture into this beard by running these lines, okay, down it. I'm just going to randomly put these in, and I'm not going to put them across the whole thing. Okay, I'm just putting them in different spots to provide some depth. Now, I'm going to put some marks in here with the knife. I'm going to take a little section out like that, a little chip. Take another one out over here. Okay, and this is adding texture to the beard. Okay, and now that I got all these big textured things in, now I'm going to take this little bitty number 3 dockyard, and I'm going to start just putting in smaller hairs. For the nose, for the mustache, we're coming up to the mustache. The mustache is the center point for the mustache, or the nose is the center point of the mustache. So all these lines are going to meet under the mustache, and that gives you the best look for the mustache. All those little lines meet up underneath the nose. I'm having a problem speaking English right now, apparently. Once you get over to the sides, underneath the cheeks, you can come straight up to the cheeks. You don't have to meet up underneath the nose. But if you're working on the mustache, it meets under the nose. And then we're just randomly doing these lines. Some are longer, some are shorter. Don't make them perfectly symmetrical, okay? If you want some longer ones, go for long. Take that all the way down right there, put it in here, and just really put some randomness to it. Get in there and play around with it. Then we'll carve up here to the underside of that mouth. Okay. Looking severe, looking angry, looking just mean. Now, we want to add more texture to this guy. He doesn't have much texture up here. We did a little texturing down here. We've got some liveliness to it, right? We want to have more. So I'm going to take that number 9. We're going to do a lot with this. I'm going to come in at an angle here, put a couple of marks there. I'm going to round off these edges here like that. Take those hard corners off right here and right there. Hard corners off. We don't want any hard corners left behind. We want to smooth everything out as best we can. All of these hard stuff, we're just going to round them off, okay? Round them off. Now this hard corner here, we're going to take these lines here. I'm going to carve some lines in to these shoulders to create a little flow. And then I'm going to come back in. Take that down a bit more, I think. Right? And now I'm not going to go as deep this time. There. I'm going to curve this hood in more. Going in and out, in and out. Along this top of this hood, I'm going to put a line in right here. Right along the top of that. Like so. Curve that in. I like that hard corner on the outside edge there. Take that down. So yeah, we got some more liveliness coming to them. I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to take off hard corners. I'm going to round this head in, right? That top is way too flat. So I'm going to spend some time curving that thing in. Okay? Curving in the top of that head. More and more. More and more. As I go. And you can see that line that we used that number 9 on. I smoothed out each side of it a little bit, so it looks like that stuff just setting on his brow. It's a really neat look to that. We can do a similar thing here with the bottom of the hood, and it comes down the shoulder here, okay? So we do it there, and we'll do it here as well. Like so. And then we're going to carve up and in. Like this. Okay, that sets that in a bit more. See that line? It's looking better now. Looking better. Now we're going to do a little bit more right here. Carve in the back of this, just like this. Just like this. I'm putting that curve in right here, like the robe is sitting on the back of the shoulders and then curves into the back of the head. So that's the back of the head, and we're putting that curve there all the way around that, like that. Okay? Down the hardness on that. And then we're going to put some lines right here along the back. Like this thing is pulled tight on its back. Okay? Up to there. And then randomly on the head, we're going to put some little lines with this number 9 coming up. Like there's a little strain on the cloth, you know? Yeah. We'll do that down here a little bit too. There's little strains on the cloth just to provide some random textures. Because when you're oiling this, when you're oiling and waxing, buffing, it's going to look really interesting and really neat, and it's going to really pop. Absolutely fantastic. Put a little V-notch into that corner there. Same for that corner. We didn't do to this side that we did to the other side. Let's take that out like so. And then, again, put those lines across like that. So we're doing pretty good there. We're doing pretty good. What else can we do? Okay, so right here in the front, that's a little too far out. Let's curve that in. Curve that in right here. Yeah, I like that. I like that look. Like so. Right? Look at him. He's looking kind of got his shoulders up. He's hunched over a bit. Yeah, he's looking pretty good. Okay. All right. Let's round off all this. I don't want any of those flat sections. Okay. Anywhere it looks flat-ish, we have work to do. On my carving, on your carving, anywhere where you can see it, just it's looking a little too flat. Just go in there with something. Do something to it. Don't let it be flat. Get some curvature in there. Get something. Do something. Shave on it a little bit, because nothing is going to be flat on a real person, right? And look, like he was messed up. He is looking so much better. He still looks rough because we haven't washed him yet. When we wash him, he's going to look a world different. He's going to look so good. I think I want to thin this hood out though. I think I want to thin this hood out more. And even though we did texture on this thing, we can redo that texture, okay? We can absolutely redo the texture on this hood. I'm gonna thin this hood out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna thin this hood out. Yeah, this is gonna look great. I like this. It's gonna look great. Okay. Put some curves in wherever you can. Put some curves in. All right. Yeah, look at that little curve on the top too. Maybe he's got hair inside there that's bunched up. That's causing that little bunch like that. Okay. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe we can take that front off a little bit to bring that in. Yeah. All right, now let's put some more of those little lines in, like so. Now we're just playing. Now we're just having fun, right? We're just looking around. We're just doing some things. We're being a little random. And that's what we're doing. Look at that. I think this guy's turning out absolutely fantastic. I really like the way this is looking. Okay, this is too flat through here. Too flat. So I'm just trying to put a little curve to all of this. A little something, right? A little something, something, wherever I can. I just don't want it to be flat. Okay. You know, I think we're going to call them good. Okay, so we got this far. We did absolutely fantastic. Now, I am going to go and I'm going to wash him. Because you can see how terrible he looks, right? He's got fuzzies everywhere. He's looking haggard. He's looking just really worn down and beat up. I'm going to take him over to the sink and I'm going to wash him with soap and water for 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to take a toothbrush and I'm going to scrub him, okay? All those areas where it's all messed up and it's looking chopped up, I'm going to scrub him. I'm going to use dish soap and I'm going to use lukewarm water. That way my hands are nice and comfortable. And 2 to 3 minutes, I'm going to rub him with my fingers. Every crevice, every crack. And I'm just going to just wash him like this right here, rubbing him under there. Wringing my fingers around him like this. I'm going to take a toothbrush and I'm going to scrub all over here, okay? That's exactly what I'm going to do. 2 to 3 minutes, maybe longer, until he's looking good. The wood is going to swell with the water. And all of these superfluous cuts, like this one right here on his cheeks, like look at that one right there on his eye here, okay? That's going to go away. You're going to see that in a little bit, and I'll point that out again. So let me go do that real quick, and I'll be right back. Check it out. He's all done. You can see now here that line's repaired, okay? He looks good. We still got, on mine at least, right through here, it doesn't look perfect in there. This side looks great. So do it like that side. This side doesn't look perfect. So what am I going to do to fix that? What am I going to do? That skew won't fit in there properly. Well, this one will. There we go. That was the only spot that didn't come completely clean with washing. I thought it would. It's the first time I've been proven wrong. But that's significantly better. With wax and everything like that, he's going to look really great. All right, so we got these figures all finished up, and I've got them coated in black walnut Danish oil for both these. I want to go over with you a little bit real quickly on how I go about coating those so you can see how to do the process. Take a look at this. Apply the oil however you'd like to. If you want to use pipe cleaner, you can use pipe cleaner. If you want to use these cotton swab things, you can use those, or you can just use a rag. Whatever you'd like to use, that's what you should use. I'm going to use black walnut Danish oil. I have it in a jar because along this rim, it can start to gum up. Because it gums up like that, that's why I took it out of its original container to put in one that's easier to use for me. When applying black walnut Danish oil, I'm just going to liberally apply it. I soak this thing and then just dump it on the carving. I can dip it in the carving if the carving's small enough to fit into the jar. And if it was small enough, I absolutely would. I do not consider that overkill. I do not think there's a way to mess up applying this unless you just apply it too thinly. I am putting it on thick and heavy, and I'm gonna have to wipe off the excess. I'm not sparingly putting this on. It is without any kind of spare stuff whatsoever. People are gonna say, oh, well, Johnny, I don't want it to be too dark all over the place. I want to have light spots. Yep, we're gonna worry about that later. When you're applying this, you just put it on thick and heavy. And I mean thick and heavy. I worry you think maybe you shouldn't apply it as thickly and as heavily as I'm going to tell you to. And I tell you right now, you're probably thinking wrong. Apply it thick and heavy, and then afterwards, we're going to wipe it off. The key to making this look right is absolutely in the buffing and waxing, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute. So we speed this up just real quick, and once it's all applied, then I take the paper towel and I wipe it off immediately. I wipe the carving and I scrub it a little bit by hand, pushing the flat surfaces and just wiping it off the flat surface as best I can. And I'm really just trying to clean all the flat surfaces really well. I'm not worried about the deep crevices. I'm just wiping out the flat surfaces, and you can see it looks pretty close to what we're looking for. But the shine, the sheen, the really great look, that's all gonna come from the buffing and the waxing that we're gonna do next. With Paste Natural Finishing Wax, it comes relatively soft. You don't have to try to melt it, but you can just take a hair dryer and hold it to melt the paste wax down, and that will make it a little bit easier to apply. The issue then is that you'll have probably too much wax on the application. So here you can see I've got it melted down to where it's a little bit easier to apply and applies more as a liquid, but that's not what you necessarily have to do. As long as you get the wax applied on the wood grain, pushed into the wood grain all across the entire surface, that's all you're looking to do. It is difficult to mess this up. You're going to have to work hard to mess this up. The wax being on there, you just need a lot of wax on there. You're going to be taking it all off. As long as there's enough wax to facilitate you brushing, that's what's going to create the effect we're looking for, where the light spots are going to be on the top and the dark spots are going to be in those crevices. It's not the wax that creates those light spots. When we use the brush on this carving, as we start to buff it, we're going to be pulling out that Danish oil, and it's going to be staining our brush. Take a look at that brush. Why is it discolored the way that it is? Because it's pulling Danish oil off of the carving when I'm buffing. As I go across it, it's hitting all those high surfaces. It's pulling Danish oil off of it with the wax into the brush, and that's lightening up those high spots. This is why you don't need to sand. You just get it thoroughly coated with wax, and then we can let it dry, and we'll move on to the next step. Now, before this step that I'm showing right here, I will take a paper towel and I will wipe the surface of the carving completely, wiping off as much wax by hand with a paper towel as I possibly can. Then, once I do that, I take a hair dryer to heat it up in all those deep crevices like the eyes and the elbows, and get it a little bit softer before I start with the brushing. This is it. This is the process where the carving comes alive. This is the process where we get the look that everyone loves so much. It is all about buffing. And you're going to see me spend a while here. A while on just the hood. A while on just the arms. A while on the top of the head, the back of the head. I am not rushing this. When I say that I might spend 5 minutes brushing, that's a long time to spend just buffing a carving. But as you do that, all that dark walnut Danish oil on the high surface areas is going to start to come out. Not all of it, but enough that you create that look and effect that so many people like to see on the carvings that I get done. The more you do this, the more you're going to bring out that look that we're looking for. Just do a little bit of it, take a look at how it's looking, and then do a little bit more. Do not skimp on the brushing. Do not skimp on the buffing. Put some elbow grease into it and get it done properly. And there he is with the look and style that we wanted. And all it took was a little bit of buffing. And that's all I got for you today, folks. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Head over to Instagram, Facebook. Give me a like and a follow over there. And I really appreciate it. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can head over to Patreon too and do a monthly subscription. You can do that, and I'll put a special thanks at the end of the video if you get the tier 2. If you do tier 3, I can even help you out with your carvings, and you can send me pictures of whatnot, things you're working on, and I can help you by offering good, positive feedback and criticism on what you can do better and how you can improve to see yourself up your game if you'd like to take part in that. So if you want to help support the dream and get me doing this full time, then I really appreciate it. Outside of that, I'll see you next time. Bye.